You're watching KOCO 5, live, local, late breaking. This is KOCO 5 News in the morning.
If you're just now waking up with us at 6 o'clock, a lot has happened overnight. Breaking news right now in Paris. At least 2 terror suspects shot and killed in an overnight raid. You're looking live here at the scene. 7 others are currently in custody. Who this latest raid was targeting and the impact this could have on us right here at home in Oklahoma. As we approach 6:01, want to welcome you into the newscast. We're glad you're along with us this morning. I'm Abigail Ogle.
And I'm Ariel Reshef. We will get to that very big overnight developing story in just a moment. But first, of course, a lot of you heading out this morning want to talk to meteorologist Brad Souter about the wind and the chilly temperatures out there, Brad.
It is windy outside. Yeah, look at these flags. I'll just step back here. Yeah, they're winds are really whipping here. This is at our state capitol, the Oklahoma flag, the American flag. These winds 20 to 25, even 30 miles per hour this early. The airport actually one of the lighter wind spots, 17 miles per hour. That wind there is certainly more than that with a current gust ongoing. 42 degrees. It's going to feel like it's in the lower 30s this morning. It's going to be a morning to certainly grab your jacket and stay warm. The weather today in Oklahoma will be cold. Of course, all of the big storms, the snow that was there yesterday. Yes, it did say snow there around Boise City, picking up several inches, half a foot of snow fell in parts of the panhandle of Oklahoma yesterday. That, in contrast to a little more than 24 hours ago, they had massive tornadoes that we're just now starting to get some of the ratings on from the Amarillo Weather Office. So we're talking more about that this morning. We're also talking about it feeling like it's in the 20s and 30s. Northwest Oklahoma this morning, feeling right now in Woodward, Oklahoma, like it's 24 degrees, the wind chill. 58 degrees by noontime today. Southwest wind continues really all day long. Low 60s at 5 o'clock. We'll talk about your football weather this coming weekend. But now let's get back over to Abby and Ariel.
A suspect in a stabbing is on the run this morning. Officers say the victim was stabbed in a parking lot at the Walmart neighborhood market last night near Southwest 59th and Penn. Want you to be aware that this is still going on. He was taken to the hospital. The extent of his injuries are unclear. Taking you now to that big story overseas. That is the sound of gunfire in a suburb of Paris as police raided a home.
And that's not the only development overnight out of France. Marky, you've been following this very closely, and police say 2 of the suspects from the Friday attacks were killed in this raid, we believe.
Yeah, that's right. So we originally thought it was 3 people this morning, but that number has dropped and stands at 7 people detained. You know, this has been such a fluid situation. It seems like new information coming in every few minutes on this. But the latest we know, police bearing down on an apartment there where they believe the mastermind and several heavily armed people could have been. Authorities saying they stormed that building just in time as they believe that group was about to move on some sort of operation. Now, in this raid, at least 5 officers were injured. 1 civilian just walking by was also killed in that exchange of gunfire. Also killed a police dog named Diesel.
And investigators believe there is a second suspect who escaped that attack at a Paris cafe. They know that because of the surveillance video that was just released overnight. Up until this point, officials hadn't said how many people were involved in that attack at the cafe. And Oklahoma, of course, we're all invested in this. We are sending our prayers to the people of France. And also, we did this with this vigil here yesterday. This was at the National Memorial downtown. The service was held at the Survivor Tree at the bombing memorial. Those who attended signed a large card that will also be sent to France.
Muslims around the U.S. say that they are being targeted in the wake of the terror attacks in Paris. Texas police say they're investigating a hate crime against a mosque near Austin. Members of the mosque were shocked to find pages from the Quran covered in feces at the front door on Monday.
Somebody must have really been out of their mind to go about, doing that, and then they took the time, stick pages of the Quran on there. I mean, it's just very disrespectful.
Police and FBI agents are also trying to figure out who fired off multiple shots at a Connecticut mosque hours after the terrorist attacks in Paris. Abby, over to you.
And how could this affect us here at home? That's what a lot of Oklahomans are wondering. Well, Governor Mary Fallin and other governors from across the country held a conference call with President Obama last night. They talked about accepting those Syrian refugees. 34 governors are expressing concerns about bringing refugees into our country who they think could be terrorists. Governor Fallin emailed us this statement here saying, quote, "We certainly want to be a humanitarian people, and there are ways to do that, but our first and foremost job is the safety and security of our nation." At 6:05, getting you to some of your other overnight headlines. We told you a couple weeks ago about the husband of the mayor in Lahoma dressing up like a KKK member for Halloween. The husband's friends also took part in this. In a community meeting this week, many pushed for the city to move forward and heal. The police department said no laws were broken in that incident last month. And Oklahoma City Police naming a suspect in a shooting that killed a veteran.
This morning, officers are looking for Deshaun Colbert. As you see him on the right-hand side, they say he shot Sergeant Devin Fuller earlier this month. That happened outside a club near Northwest 12th and Penn. Fuller's friends say he was waiting to give a friend a ride when he was hit by a bullet. The suspect also goes by the name Doopy Younglife. An Oklahoma sheriff under investigation by federal authorities. The FBI says that they are looking into Love County Sheriff Joe Russell. Agents are investigating whether Russell may have helped his son in his illegal drug activities since 2010 by protecting and covering up those crimes.
A college in Maryland closed until further notice. Police are looking for a missing student from Washington College. Authorities believe that Jacob Marburger went to his home in Pennsylvania to get a gun. The college says it hasn't received any direct threats, but an arrest warrant was issued for that student. Approaching 6:07 and happening today, former Texas Governor Rick Perry will ask a court to dismiss felony charges against him.
You may remember last year a grand jury indicted Perry for abusing his power. That's what they indicted him for. Perry threatened to veto funds after a district attorney refused to resign after a drunk driving conviction. It was a very convoluted case at the time. Perry says the case is politically motivated. He also says it's one of the reasons his presidential campaign failed.
Snow business like snow business. The first snow. When will we see it here in central Oklahoma? Meteorologist Shelby Hayes has the scoop, or maybe the shovel. I don't know. The snow shovel.
Abby, you're killing me. Good morning to you guys. You're having fun this morning. Hey, listen, Yukon, Oklahoma, low 40s as we get going by midday, 60 degrees. You know, it's going to be chilly. We've got some really cold weather coming too. You're going to want to see this for your football games. We've got that, of course, Abby and Ariel with all of your breaking headlines as well.
It is 6:07, taking you up with Sky 5 over Frontier City. You see the lights of the Ferris wheel there over I-35. We're going to see some other kinds of lights soon. The holiday season approaching, definitely starting to feel like the holidays are coming.
Live, local, late breaking. This is KOCO 5 News in the morning. With Ariel Reshef, Abigail Ogle, and meteorologist Brad Souter.
At 6:11, many of you probably planning to travel for the holiday season. If you're like me, you're traveling on the ground safely. No, I don't like to fly, but American Airlines making changes to its frequent flyer program.
Yeah, a lot of these programs changing things up. It's frustrating to customers who can't follow it. So you will now earn points based on ticket prices, not the miles that you've traveled. So how much you pay for your ticket. The more expensive your ticket, the more points that you will earn. The company will also lower the number of reward miles required to redeem free flights. So some good news there. In Commitment 2016, Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal is dropping out of the race for president. The Republican told Fox News, quote, "This is not my time." Jindal says he isn't ready to endorse another candidate just yet, but he will support the Republican nominee when the time comes.
New this morning, Porsche says the crash that took actor Paul Walker's life in 2013 was his own fault. Lawyers for Walker's teen daughter sued the car maker in September, claiming his sports car had multiple design flaws. But Porsche says the car was modified before that crash and that Walker knew the risks of driving it. At 6:12, taking a live look here. This is the state capitol, but this gives you a great idea of how windy it is out there. We call it Wednesday, W-I-N-D-S. Wednesday, because it is really windy. We'll hear from meteorologist Brad Souter in just a couple of minutes.
You're watching KOCO 5 News in the morning. We're glad you're along with us on this windy Wednesday, taking a live look there at the beautiful Boathouse District. If you're getting out on the water, you better hang on to those oars. It is windy, blustery, and chilly out there.
Heavy rain flooded roads in Fort Smith, Arkansas yesterday. Many roads there weren't even passable. Crews say they responded to 67 flood-related calls on Tuesday. Severe storms were also reported in central Arkansas as well.
So Brad, we were talking about this a little bit during the break. I asked you that it feels like every Wednesday we say it's Windy Wednesday. Is there something to this? Is there science to this, or is this just a coincidence?
The way the weather flows around the earth, waves, troughs, comes in waves. There's about 7 of them around the earth at a given time. And the propagation of these is about once a week.
Oh.
So this time of year, your weather pattern is going to be similar with changing weather about once a week. So that's why we get some of the wind.
So it might be windy next Wednesday.
Exactly. Very possible. Very possible.
We'll look forward to that.
If you get some blocking highs or big lows across, that can affect it. That's why the summer is not necessarily that way. But when you have changing weather, it can be very similar. So breezy to windy today. It is going to be a windy Wednesday. Cooler and dry weather the next few days, and rather cold weather comes in for this coming weekend. So cold temperatures are outside this morning with the fact that it's still quite windy outside. 43 degrees in Ponca City, Bartlesville at 45, and we're looking at the even colder weather from Woodward, Oklahoma, where you're 32 this morning, but it is feeling in the 20s in Woodward with the 10 to 15 mile per hour wind that you have. A lot of this wind kicking in from the west, still all part of that exiting low that's moving across south and east Kansas this morning. It's just going to bring us the wind. We're in the dry part of it. We're not going to have any more wet weather, even for those that had wet weather yesterday in the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. It was snow, by the way. It snowed yesterday in Guyman. It snowed in Boise City. Significant snows, in fact, around Boise City. Up to a half a foot fell there in Oklahoma yesterday. Isn't that incredible? And just a few miles away the night before were tornadoes. Of course, we're all quiet now as far as any storms go. We just have the cold and the breeze. You need a jacket. 50 and recess time outside today for the kids, 64 for their way home. How about a little football action? You know, we've got a system coming in on Saturday that's bringing in cold air. So if you're going to be at the Oklahoma State Cowboys game this weekend, you are tailgating around one of those propane heaters potentially as you're trying to stay warm. It's going to fall into the mid-30s by the fourth quarter. No warmer for Norman as TCU in town. Of course, hot games this weekend, big football weekend. Kickoff 40 degrees, fourth quarter at 36. Chilly this afternoon in the 60s. Winds out of the south and west. So 59 tomorrow, 64 on Friday. That's the last warm day here on this week forecast. This week's forecast, 45 on Saturday, starting at 32. 45, that's as warm as we get. And look at the north wind. That's going to make it feel cold. Sunday morning, that hard freeze. Growing season coming to an end in Oklahoma over this weekend. And then next week, we have temperatures that will be November-like. You know, heads up next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Yes, only a 20% chance of rain. It's a ways out, but a lot of people traveling for Thanksgiving. Chances of that to change. So it's still a ways away.
That's why we have you.
Yeah, and I've got family coming in town, so we're watching you closely, Brad.
And looking at the 5+5 day forecast, you see a lot of cooler temperatures and finally experiencing that colder weather that a lot of people expect for this time of the year.
Yeah, but people kind of wondering if we're behind schedule when it comes to the first snow, Shelby. Is that the case?
You know, we're not just yet here in Oklahoma City. We saw a little bit of snow out in the Panhandle. It really depends on where you live. We can certainly have snow by now in Oklahoma City, but not normally. In fact, the earliest measurable snow in Oklahoma City was recorded on October 26th, but we don't usually the average first snow, that's not until mid-December. So we're not quite there yet, about a month out. And then the average first time for OKC to pick up 1 inch of snow or more, that's December 28th. So, you know, this week last year, we had about 2.5 inches of snow here in Oklahoma City. This year, no snow for us just yet.
If you've ever looked at Time Hop on Facebook, I saw your post the other day. You were covering snow this time last year.
That's one of my favorite things is to look back at what
fun.
was the weather like last year, and what is it like this year? Completely different in Oklahoma oftentimes.
Very typical for Oklahoma. You were covering tornadoes this year. Last time this year, you were covering snow.
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook helping families celebrate Thanksgiving a little bit early. The Thunder Star served Thanksgiving dinner to kids at the Boys and Girls Club yesterday. This is the 4th year that Westbrook has done this. He says he sees it as his duty.
You know, what I've done and who I am as a person to be able to give back and to kind of see these kids and see the people that has helped me put this on. And, it's a blessing and it's something I love to do.
You see his wife there next to him, also his brother Ray helping him out. This season is getting pretty busy, obviously, for Russell and the rest of the Thunder. They play the New Orleans Pelicans tonight at the Peak, 7 o'clock, Thunder up.
It is 6:20 now, taking you out to the big story overseas. You can see French President Francois Hollande is addressing the public after a night of raids at a Paris apartment complex. This is targeting the attackers that targeted France on Friday. We do know at this point that Francois Hollande addressing the public about those raids occurring overnight. 7 people arrested, 2 people died in those raids. KOCO's Marky Martin listening into this speech. She'll have an update for you at 6:30. Stay with us.